for, say now, this is the 25th year, Silver Jubilee year. I look quite young. That's I think it was in May 1990, I started journalism. And then I've been always touched by people suffering. There's somebody, one international delegate at a conference told me, you write your stories with a lot of passion. Because I have a point to prove. Not as motivated, but speak up for people, voiceless people. So I went to Kandhamal, it's a jungle, and it has changed my life altogether. Now one thing is, I was touched by their suffering. And that has changed I got provoked, because in Kandhamal several Christians had been killed for their faith, you can call them martyrs. And then I met the district collector called the deputy collector of Kandhamal. He came to cut a cake at the refugee camp. And as typical journalist, when he was leaving, I asked him a cheeky question. Why don't you acknowledge those killings? It's good that you are celebrating Christmas for these people by the government, but that's not enough. Now, my problem was there was a death list of 75 prepared by the churches, but according to the government, only 32 people have been killed. So I knew several cases. So I asked him, there is a case of a pastor being asked to forsake his faith because he refused. They made him stand in a pit, filled soil up to his neck and told him to give up his faith. He refused, so they crushed his head with a rock. And 3 days later, when the relatives, the men from the family came, there was no trace of the body, nothing. And then when the wife and the people went to the police, they refused to file a complaint, an FIR, saying that you are hiding him. So I asked the collector, he said these are cooked up stories. Christians are hiding these people to get the compensation. So I told him, please don't say that. So we had a tiff. And then, but he was adamant. He said, we have investigated, there is no proof. So if you provide us proof, we will take it. So I said, I am not a court of inquiry or a police department. You have to do that. He said, we have done it. So I said, okay, in that case, I will do it on my own way. So that provoked me to go beyond journalism, to document these things more meticulously. And within 3 months, that is, in the 8th month of the violence, I came out with this book called Kandhamal, a blot on Indian secularism. Because there are two things. One is this: India is supposed to be a secular democratic republic, as the preamble of the constitution says. And here is a man who is just not murdered. As in, he is like it is not even persecution. It is terrible. He is just killed for his freedom of faith. Because he refused to forsake his faith, they just crushed his head with a rock. And the government refuses to acknowledge that murder or file a complaint and prosecute the people. So this book made a lot of impact. The government was forced to concede the murder. When after the book was released in New Delhi with several TV channels and all the papers covering it, there is a national lot of coverage. So the Orissa government wanted to silence me. And they did. They considered the 5 murders I had highlighted in the book, which had not been acknowledged. So I was happy. I was able to get these murders acknowledged and get 5 lakhs each, that is $500,000 rupees each for these 5 families. But from that is one side, that human suffering, that people were in the refugee camps, they were like, it's pitiable. There was no roof, there were no toilets, any number of, you can imagine in a jungle what would be an open air refugee camp. On the other side, I saw in them real Christians. Now, for me as a journalist, I covered the church as covering the Christian beat. I've been all over South Asia. I've seen many places. But I saw the finest Christians, or the finest witness to Christ in over 20 years in Kandhamal. If you read, as you read in the Gospel of Matthew 16:24, if you want to follow me, forsake everything, carry the cross and come. That is what the Kandhamal people did. When they were asked to forsake their faith and go to the temple for reconversion, what we call the Garvapasi now. It was the ugliest form of Garvapasi that you saw in Kandhamal. But these people stood like rock. First, when they were being taught, some of them were caught and trooped into the temples for reconversion, they ran away to the jungles. Their houses were looted and plundered. Then they came to the refugee camps. After a few months before the elections, the government shut down all the camps because the government wanted to project a kind of a normalcy. so that they can hold the elections. And the people with the 10,000 interim compensation they got, they fled Kandhamal itself. And they was living in a what you call expansive slum. More than 20,000 of Christians were in one slum in Bhubaneswar called Saliasahi slum. They were full of Christians. They asked, it was very stingy, dirty water flowing around. Said, but we are happy. Why? Because we can profess our faith free. I met a headmaster, a high school headmaster, MSc Mathematics, MSc B.Ed Mathematics teacher. He was he was asked to go to the temple. He refused. And he was living in the slum for 3 years. He said, if I go back, they will force me to become a Hindu. So I don't mind losing my job, but for me, more important is my faith than my job. Where do you find these kind of witnesses? There are any number. I also tell the story of a policeman. That shows what ails Kandhamal. Many people thought that was like a communal carnage. It was not a communal carnage. It was systematic persecution. As in the beginning of Christianity, what we call the early Christian period, Christians were bluntly told to forsake their faith. And this policeman, Junos Nayak, he lived in a village called Gadaguda. There were 250 families. Since the Christians were very strong, these people, I don't want to name those, not because I'm afraid, but I don't think it is worth naming those people. If anybody can understand who they are. They went and told them, this is a Hindu country, you have to forsake your faith, we will give you 30 days. So wherever the Christians were in large numbers and strong, they will give them an extended deadline. In some places it was 1 week, in other places it was 2 weeks, and here it was 30 days. And then on the 30th day, a mob of 1,000 people surrounds the village early in the morning at 4 o'clock. This is, you don't call it a spontaneous reaction. This is well organized. They are armed with guns and all kind of swords and petrol and kerosene and everything. They went to the elder brother of Junos. His name is Lalji Nayak. He was the headman, the pradhan of the village. And Lalji Nayak was asked, why didn't you become a Hindu yet? He said, why should I? The Constitution of India says. He may not have quoted the Constitution, but the Constitution Article 25(1), which even Obama reminded the Indian government and the people, it reads, every citizen shall have the freedom to preach, profess and propagate. Faith is to profess his religion. This is the fundamental right carried under the Indian Constitution. So they were furious. They just pierced a sword through the shoulder of Lalji Nayak. Visuals and all that, somebody has shot. Later he died next day. Then his wife came out. This lady was hit with a sword on the head. The skull was open and she fell down. She was others were also injured. Finally, there were 6 of them were taken to hospital, and this lady died only last year, but she became mad because of nerve damage and all that. Now, Junos, seeing all this, the policeman had to run for his life. He was running, they shot him, he was riddled with bullets. He came to me 2 years later while this, the National People's Tribunal on Kandhamal is being held in New Delhi, because no justice had been done to these people. So the concerned people from church, basically it is a church initiative with a lot of secular groups supporting it. There was a National People's Tribunal in Delhi at the Constitution Club. 43 Christians were victims of this violence, were taken to Delhi, and Junos came for testimony. Then he came to me. He said, sir, there are so many bullets in my body, can you take them out? I was stunned. If somebody comes and tell you I am living with the bullets in my body. So I took him out, I sat with him, and he told him his story. This explained all these things, what has happened. And then he said he was in different medical colleges. First he was in Rampur Medical College. From there he was very critical, so he was rushed and he was taken to Cuttack Medical College. When he reached, his brother was already dead. Lalji had died. And then they treated him a lot of treatment. His hand was stitched up like a football. And then he survived. After 6 months, when he went back to his Gadaguda village, he was bluntly told, you must withdraw the FIR that they filed against this killing his brother and the attack. Then you must apologize to us. And also, you must go to the temple for reconversion, Garvapsi. They have been Christians, even their father had been a Christian, that is another story. Whatever it is, Junos was not willing to give up his faith. faith. So he took a house on rent outside Kandhamal and he lived in a place called Banjanagar. So that is the time when I met him. So I asked this Junos to test his faith. He said he needs help. So I just want to know how deep was he. I knew he had a strong faith, but I want to get his, his feeling in that, what comes out from his heart. So I asked him, Junos, Christian faith is that Jesus is our Savior. Now, do you still believe that Jesus is your Savior? Because what has happened to you because of your faith in the Savior? Your brother is dead. Your sister-in-law is mad with the broken skull and the damage to the nerves. And then your hand is crippled. So do you still believe Jesus is your Savior? And he told me, sir, look at here. Touching his heart, he said, they fired so many bullets at me, but not one hit my heart. He is alive, so I am alive. I mean, this is ultimate witness to the faith. They have such firm faith. I don't think it's accidental. He's not sure. He didn't tell me no. I tell you, even despite all this, what is happening, he is selling my book in Kandhamal. He boldly, when our own people are scared of displaying a rosary on their vehicles, here is a man who boldly tells the story and giving the copy of the book to RSS people also. Tell them, read this. I mean, that is witness to the faith. So there are two dimensions to me personally. There's the human suffering. That is why I taken basically focused on two books. One is from a secular human rights perspective to draw the national attention to their suffering and the injustice done to them. That is on the one side. And on the other side, there is the incredible witness that I call them. So for me, they are real early Christians of the 21st century. Kandhamal Christians, in fact, we had this release of my book called Early Christians of 21st Century at Velanganni at the Silver Jubilee of the CCPA, what I call the Catholic Bishops, Conference of Catholic Bishops of India. That is the assembly of the Latin Rite Bishops of 131 dioceses. On the podium was Cardinal Fernando Filoni, Prefect of Evangelization of Peoples. He released that book. Cardinal Oswald Gracious, he was the CBC president at the time. And then we had Cardinal Telesforo Topo and then Nuncio Salvatore Panacchi. So it was supposed to be just a book release. I was not supposed to speak. But I think Cardinal Telesforo Topo got carried away or inspired by the Holy Spirit and he called me to say a few words. So I told the bishops, I'm standing before you not because I wrote a book. I'm standing before you because I saw real Christians for the first time in my life. Not in Kerala where St. Thomas came, not in Goa where Francis Xavier came, not in Bangalore or Shillong or Bombay, but in Kandhamal jungles. So taking on that line further, but for the 6th anniversary, I felt there is many people who know me have been asking me, you must also write about what has been the church response. I put it in, I said I can go into graphic details, but I don't want to do it now. But I would say churches in India, the whole entire Christian community, especially the leadership, owe an apology to the Kandhamal Christians. In 2000 years of Christianity in India, they produced the finest moment of Christian witness. Most sterling witness. Nobody, I so much so one bishop asked me, Anto, did these things really happen? Even a bishop can't believe how simple, illiterate people standing up for a collective testimony of 56,000 people tormented, they lost anything, but not one became. But how did we respond? I feel really sad. We have so many communication experts, we have so many human rights. How many went to Kandhamal? At least for some, self-satisfaction to see what went. I mean, they were all mortally afraid, many of them. I know there are people who have worked fearlessly. Now, we know what has happened in Gujarat, Father Cedric Prakash. There are people who have stood up for the church. But I think the church as a community should have done much, much more to the Kandhamal people. There are problems. Of course, this is a time for church also to take stock of what went wrong. I don't think such an effort has been made so far. Now everybody says something has gone wrong. We didn't do enough. Why? I think we should have learned from the lessons now. Sri Lankan government, whether they did anything or not, after this, the annihilation of the LTT and the whole movement, because of the international pressure, they set up a commission. But that words are very interesting. They said lessons learned and reconciliation. Here, Kandhamal more than liability. What are the lessons we have learned from Kandhamal? So on the one side, positively, there was what I call omission, an act of omission. If you look at from the other way, to looking future, there has not been an effort to understand why it happened. Kandhamal was not an accident. There are deep lying social problems behind it. How could the church address those issues? There are lessons to be learned from Kandhamal. Kandhamal is behind us. We cannot correct that. But we had once, as I mentioned earlier, we have to learn from it. One example I give. The Orissa government set up 2 fast-track courts. These courts were shut down midway. Nobody in the country knew. If you don't protest, you don't get justice, especially when you are, that's an old saying in it's common saying in English also is only crying babies get milk. And when you are a minuscule micro minority, if you don't make noise, you will never get justice. So when in a situation like this, and when the powers that be are not in very supportive of us, then you have to make it all the more alert and make noise. Then only I tell you, there is so much of goodwill in this country among the Hindus for the Christians. I heard it myself several times, and I tell you, the finest defense of Christians during atrocities has come not from Christian journalists but from Hindu journalists. They are more passionate about defending the Christians than our own people. But then, how do you help them? You to facilitate that support, to get their support, you should brief them. So we should be vigilant. There is a saying that the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. And this is where the church is lacking. They may know things, but they just keep quiet, as if they close their eyes and keep, doesn't matter. If I take, what will be the repercussions? Somebody has to stand up and shout for them. So we should have more of these people, more taking up issues. It should not be street protests, at an intellectual level. You have to share. Now the technology has changed. You can send a big issue. Now, if there is an issue, that the media latches onto it. See, media goes after hot news. So if there is something with us, we have a duty to share it with the media. You have to make it public. That being shy, that not the left hand know what your right hand is doing, that is not going to work. That humility and modesty is not going to help you. We have to speak out. I think that for that we need that prophetic courage. What the prophets? Prophets were ahead of their time when they stood up and spoke. And that is it, I think, duty, and especially that missionary work. I don't think all missionaries are going around with the cross and converting everyone. But they are doing something good for the society, and there is so much of goodwill for the Christian community in this country. But we have to tap and we have to break them. So in Hindi you say, Awaaz uthao, or raise your voices. And that's what we have to do. Now everybody cannot be a Father Cedric Prakash or like a Tista Situl or our Swami Agnivesh or a Baba Ante. There are limitations. But when people make noises for the oppressed, church as an institution has a duty to stand behind those who are shouting. Be in solidarity with them. Share the news, even in your own community or with your network. Then the truth will prevail. If you are going to hide the truth, I think it will never prevail. Now, as a journalist, for me, I say if you ask me what is my motto, I say pen is mightier than the sword. Now, what is my weapon? My weapon is the truth. I am speaking the truth. And when your truth is more compulsive, more powerful, then the media, the world is ready to listen. So I think there is the strategy, there is a lessons to be learned. What has happened in Godhra, beyond Godhra and Gujarat, because we have seen in many places. There are also, now I'll tell you another example. There was this massacre of the Hindus, the carnage, story of the Sikhs in Delhi after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. But 2 years before that, a few months before that, there was a massacre of over 2,000 Muslim migrants in Nelli in Assam. Nobody knew because there were no human rights defenders. Nelli massacre was one of the worst carnages in this country, but I don't think very people have heard that word. 2,000 people butchered over 2 nights. Just butchered. Most of them were hacked to pieces. So how do you So these two classical cases where the Sikhs were very alert community, they keep protesting, and they kind of filed a case against even Sonia Gandhi when she was visiting the US after nearly 30 years later. They filed a case in New York. They are alert. I'm saying they want to take that their party, this Congress party is brilliant. The point is, again I go back, cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. Not only freedom, I say your own survival. If you don't speak up, the people with the vested interest will bury you. So it is time to stand up. If you can't stand up, at least stand behind those who are standing up. See, from all my experience, I have some questions to the community, the leadership and all that. The silence of the lambs is not going to help us. We are a peaceful community, but it is not enough that we just remain like the lambs, the meek lambs. There are moments we have to speak out. So when are we going to end this silence? I don't say we should scream and shout, but we have to protest when the voices are to be raised. This is a question, are we making our voices heard? Now the voices can be heard in many ways. So the question is, how do you, now you have to find, you've got so many communication experts, how to make your voice. See, we Christians don't live in the air. We are living in a society, in a community. So any human rights issues, we should have a protest. Now, a few months ago, I think it was in July, a kindergarten girl was raped in a school. Whole Bangalore erupted in protest. And then a few days later, there was a story that a novice was drugged and raped in a convent. So some religious, I was in a meeting, there was a discussion. So one priest very sensibly said, we cannot protest now. Why? People will ask, when a 3-year-old girl is raped, you don't want to protest. Only when a nun is raped, you want to protest. See, we should feel part of the society. I think when there is a strong protest on an issue, I think we should join them. We are part of the society. We are not aliens here. We should feel more. So that role of our involvement is a question for us, it's a challenge before us. Then only we feel we are not on the margins. There are cases where churches remain always on the margin. And we should feel one with the community, with the humanity. I don't say community, the humanity. We are humans, we stand up for human values. Now I think this is a big challenge in a situation like this, when there is a majoritarianism. And this, what you call the vociferous groups are clamoring for something. We have to be more, I would say, feel in solidarity with the larger society, because we are all human beings, we are part of this society. There are occasions when authorities in power or in positions of influence, they could do a lot of things, but they are all worried. There is a lot of fear. I think that, I don't call it inferiority, but I call it more of timidity. Because maybe we have a baggage of following this, we should be silent, we are a peaceful community. We don't have to be violent or I should say go and throw stones at anybody or destroy public property. But we should make legitimate protest. That we should come out of that fear psychosis, that how can we protest, that kind of attitude we should change. There should be, when our rights, it's not only our rights, when the community, when the human rights are violated, human rights is everybody's right and everybody should be concerned. That should be, so the people in position should make more positive gestures. When acts of solidarity, and I think, are we really prepared for that? Then only we have relevance in the society, otherwise we will remain in the margins. Now, if anything happens, something goes wrong, we keep quiet, and Christians come out only when Christians are affected. Some people say, there are people, I heard sometimes lay people saying, fathers and bishops will protest only, nuns and priests are attacked. When lay people are killed, you don't care. I mean, it's not serious, but there is a point. The point is, we have to protest, whether it is lay or it is non-Christians, we have to feel one with them.